I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Newburyport Public School School Committee for Monday, May 16th. Mrs. Kennedy, would you kindly call the roll?
Mr. DeCandre?
Present.
Mr. Cole? Ms. Sweeney?
Present.
Mayor Holliday?
Present.
Mr. Hawkeiser?
Here.
Ms. Miller? Here. Mr. Mann?
Here.
One absent.
Would you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. It's lovely to see everyone here. This brings us to our session of public comment. If there's anyone who would like to address the committee, could you please step forward, state your name and your address, and we'll be glad to hear from you. There's one public comment.
Where shall I stand?
Just in front of the camera.
Okay.
Here, Mr. Mann, it'd be great.
Okay. Brenda Palmisano, I am a teacher at the Newburyport School. The Newburyport Teachers Association wants to acknowledge the difficult decisions that must be made every budget season. Because education has changed dramatically and continues to change, the demands put on the public school system and its educators has also increased dramatically. The way we think about our schools and fund our budgets has not kept pace with the changing world of education. For many years, Newburyport teachers have filled the gap, but the gap has turned into a canyon. Teachers can no longer carry the burden of what should be the responsibility of the whole community. If we continue cutting the level funding, we will lose good people who are already here, and we won't be able to attract strong new candidates to work in Newburyport. A staff that has the necessary supports and knows they are valued is the best resource for our students. For the teachers of Newburyport, it is all about our students. Teachers are exhausted by ever-increasing demands and unrealistic expectations, but no budgetary relief. Without proper supports and staffing, teachers find themselves in a constant dilemma. The dilemma can be summed up by the thoughts of two dedicated Newburyport teachers. One remarked, "I really love my job working with my students," while another lamented, "I am living for the day when I once again will love my job." Thank you.
Tracy Glenn, Newburyport, Massachusetts, 33 Storybook Drive. Tracy Glenn, 33 Storybook Drive, Newburyport. I'm a high school math teacher. Have been working for 30 years here in Newburyport. It is about our students. We have too few teachers to serve our students and inadequate supports to ensure their success, which results in less opportunities for our students. There is a strategic plan, but no budgetary commitment to fund those things identified as necessary to student success and achievement. Thank you.
Good evening. Erin Hobbs, I work here at Newburyport High School. Special educators and service providers report that the demand of their caseload put them in danger of missing direct service time with students in order to fill their other professional obligations, such as testing, report writing, and IEP and 504 meetings. Between the last school year and this school year, our service providers reported a 155% increase in the number of evaluations they have to complete based on their caseload.
I live at 8 Juno Street in Suffolk, Massachusetts. I teach at the middle school. It's about our students. There's been an increase in special education. It's about our students. There's been an increase in special education testing requests because we do not have a well-functioning safety net, the RTI system, to catch these students and better support their learning needs. There is currently no effective way to execute RTI with fidelity based on the current staffing numbers. There is a lack of consistent reading support or intervention for non-IEP struggling readers at grades 4 to 8. Additionally, there is also an absence of adequate math intervention for struggling students in those grades.
Good evening, everyone. Sean Blue, 13A Christie Drive, Newburyport, Mass. I'm a teacher at the high school here, a soccer coach, youth coach, and also have 2 boys in the school system here in Newburyport. To reiterate, it's about our students. Continued cuts in program offerings make it more difficult for our students to be competitive in the larger world. There is no full year foreign language in the middle school students. The only foreign language currently being taught is Spanish. Newburyport once was a model for foreign language education, offering it to all of the students in the elementary school. Now we have a model that does not support the acquisition of 21st century skills for our students. Interdisciplinary course offerings at the high school, a goal of the administration, cannot be expanded due to lack of funds, lack of common planning time, and lack of schedule conducive to a co-teaching model. Thank you.
Good evening, school committee. My name is Brandon Sturma. I'm a Newburyport teacher at the high school and social studies chair. And I'd like to ask you, how can we ensure student success if we are not willing to properly invest in the future of our students? Currently, Newburyport funds its students at a lower cost per pupil rate than many of our Cape Ann counterparts, including Triton, Hamilton Wenham, Topsfield, and Manchester, Essex. Newburyport's cost per pupil spending is below the DESE average of $14,518 for all districts. The Newburyport Teachers Association believes in a Newburyport community that invests in its students by supporting a budget that meets the needs of schools and by settling a fair and equitable contract. For this reason, as proud members of the Newburyport Teachers Association, we present this petition to the school committee, which affirms our members' full support for the NTA bargaining team and to urge the Newburyport School Committee to quickly settle a fair and equitable contract. Thank you.
Is there any further comment? Thank you. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Do we have warrants this evening, Mr. Menon?
We do have warrants this evening. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $320,524.42 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts on this.
Second.
All right. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $53,844.84 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. Also, no conflicts on that.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that it? Mr. Menon, is that it?
That's it for
Thank
warrants,
you.
yes, sorry.
That's all right. I'd like to turn your attention to the minutes of the Newburyport School Committee business meeting of Monday, May 2nd, 2016. Could I hear a motion? Second?
Second.
Discussion, corrections, comments? Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstention.
He was absent. Motion carries. Thank you. Clara, tell us about the high school.
All right. Maybe less interesting, all that stuff, but
Well, I'm going to ask you your opinion about it.
so this week the sophomores are doing the NCAS math testing, so good luck to them. Thursday, May 19th, is the NHS Spring Concert, which is going to feature performances from the band, the choir, and the dance class, which is a night class that we started, I think, this year. So,
When is
it'll be
that?
interesting. This Thursday, May 19th,
Here?
in the auditorium. And then Monday, May 23rd, exciting for me. It's the last day for seniors classes.
Exciting.
You still have to keep coming to school committee meetings.
All right, I'll
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
yeah. And then the following week, of May 30th, is the senior week with all the activities, which culminates in the graduation ceremony. It's very exciting.
I saw Mr. Parent had the senior meeting last week. How did that go?
I think it's mostly the parents that attend that.
No, I know. Did
Yeah.
you get any feedback? Behave?
Yeah.
Be smart?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Got it? You're going to tell me you have homework, right?
No, I'm done with. I get to stay.
Really? Oh, nice. Next, we're going to have a discussion of, for the school committee, one of the most important tasks we have each year, and that is the evaluation of the superintendent. So this evening, I'd like to start a conversation about that process, and having 2 new members on our committee, I wanted to make sure that they had all the information that I felt they needed in order to complete this process. So this packet looks daunting, but it's the background information that we all need to be able to do the job we need to do in order to fully and fairly evaluate the superintendent. I think I need my...
I wonder how many of these some of you have at home.
I do. But it's good to refresh, though, because this is an important one. So if you look in your the packet that you received from Kathy Manning, you'll see, I just lost it. You'll see that the first page of her packet talks about the end-of-cycle summative evaluation report, which is given to us by the superintendent. You'll notice that Superintendent Vaccaro has put in the professional practice goals, the SMART goals that she presented to us earlier in the year. So those should be no surprise to anyone. Our job is to evaluate the superintendent fully based on these 3 SMART goals and the 4 standards. So all the information you have, and the superintendent's evaluation is 11 pages long, and that's the first section we gave you. 12, sorry. No, more. So I'd like you to look at this part of your packet where it talks about the guide to the rubrics, which is part 3, Guide to Rubrics and Model Rubrics for Superintendent, Administrator, and Teacher. So if you flip through the first few pages, that's the introduction. And when you get to page, I'd like you to look at page 8 for a moment. This is, in a page, in a nutshell, everything we need to do. The state has given us 4 standards, 16 indicators, and 33 elements in the model rubric for teachers. So these are all the areas that we can take a look at when we want to evaluate the superintendent. However, we need to take a look at her SMART goals and how they fit into this, but you'll see in her evaluation the second piece of this is all about the standards and what kind of progress she's made toward those standards, and that's in this document. So if you want to see the full picture of what we're doing, it's here. That gives you the overview of how the indicators, the elements, and the standards are separated out. Then if you look further in this packet, you'll see that, it's not in this one, it's this one. We have rubrics in order to, I'm sorry, I can't find it. Here? No, the rubrics. Ooh, maybe we don't have it. All right, here it is. This section here is, I'm on page 9 now, how to read a rubric. Page 10 talks about the 4 performance levels of a rubric. The superintendent cannot receive an unsatisfactory without first receiving a needs improvement in an area. Here. It's supposed to be here. Anyway, I'm going to get to you the third part of the packet, which talks about actually the rubrics themselves and what determines the performance level for each one of the elements. I thought it was here. Not this? No, the rubrics underneath that let us determine what is proficient, what is, I'm sorry, I don't have that, but I will get that to you as well. If you recall, we did not finish the superintendent's evaluation till early in the fall last year. So that's the cycle that Susan and I determined that we would keep for this year, because as you recall from last year, a lot of things that the superintendent does carry her through till at least July 1, and then sometimes beyond that. So we, again, want to get a full picture. Last year, we presented the superintendent's evaluation at the end of the summer, and is that... So the next step in this, other than you familiarizing yourself with all of these documents, we are waiting for Susan to present us with her evidence of documentation of the progress she's made in the areas that she's indicated, which include her 3 SMART goals and the 4 standard areas. She will not hit, and we don't expect her to hit, all 33 elements every time we evaluate her. I think in the beginning of this year, we did set aside some thoughts for her as to where we would like her to focus, and that's where her SMART goals came from. So we, on the other hand, may comment on any of the 33 elements, but fairness says if we haven't really addressed them and worked on them, that's not where we want our priority to be. So the priority would be, as I said, the 3 SMART goals. And I'm sorry,
I think it's important to have me complete this school year to be able to present you with evidence based on what's been accomplished this year, but also that helps me, along with your feedback for this year, to plan for the coming year. So I think that's an important link there.
I found the copies that we need. They weren't run off, so thank you so much. But it's each of the rubrics and how you're going to determine your performance criteria. Mr. Menon, since you're on this committee with me forever, do you have anything to add? No? Just, we've done this before. I think we've kind of worked it out. There's no collaboration during the time we fill out the superintendent's evaluation. Although if you have questions, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be glad to help you as much as I can. And then we've been lucky in the end that Mr. Decanter has done, and Mr. Menon also have done an executive summary of the superintendent's report. So this will be for us the knowledge stage of the process, and I will give support to anyone who needs it. Ms. Vaccaro, do you know when you'll be able to give us your progress update?
I'd like to say early in the summer. I'd like the school year to end so that I can tie up some things that I'm working on.
Okay. Is that all right with everyone? Okay. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And Ms. Bick just went to run off the packet that I forgot to give Mrs. Manning. It's my own fault. But it does give you the rubric and the guide to how to fill this out. So, do you have anybody have a question, thought, concern? So we'll probably see your information the first. Do we have a meeting in July? First meeting in July. So we'll look into that. Second part of this evening is, it's in your packet, is the school committee self-evaluation. And Mr. DeCanter, would you like to address any of that, since you did our executive summary and glowing colors and
all of that kind of good stuff? What we are trying to do with the school committee self-evaluation is mirror as much as possible the evaluation we do for the superintendent. If we are setting appropriate goals, and we believe we did this year, our goals are very much in line with the superintendent, or probably I should say the other way around, the superintendent's goals are very much in line with our goals as a school district. So we will be, like the superintendent's evaluation, we will be taking a look at our goals in the areas of curriculum and assessment, families and communities, professional culture, teaching all students, and management and operations. We will evaluate each of our goals in these areas on a progress spectrum from did not meet that goal to exceeded that goal, but also on a performance spectrum from unsatisfactory to exemplary. So it's not only did we do it, how much of it did we do, it's also how well we did it. And so each of the goals will be evaluated along those two spectrums, and then there's opportunity, plenty of opportunity for you to comment. We invite you to comment. We require you to comment on anything that you consider that we did in an unsatisfactory or needs improvement or exemplary. So at the two extremes, please comment on your evaluations. Because this is not a part of the overall evaluation system that the Massachusetts Department of Education has set up, we're trying to mirror the rubrics and the kind of thought process behind it pretty much in the way that it's presented in this document. So you will see that in the superintendent's evaluation, these are the same terms that are being used. And we will use the same kind of definition for our performance, what is unsatisfactory performance, what is needs improvement, et cetera, as is defined in this packet. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to sit down with you, as I know Cheryl is. And when we get that information back to us, then we'll put it into a summary and we can review it as a committee.
Didn't you present this at a state conference because somebody was...
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there are very few school districts in Massachusetts that are doing self-evaluations, although all, or just about all of them, are either required by their own statutes, and I believe it's now also in the state, but the state hasn't given us any guidelines as to how to do it. And we are probably the first school district that actually tied our self-evaluation to the same format and the same structure that they are using for evaluating administrators and teachers. And because of that, we presented at the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. And as far as I know, the ones who are regionally following our footsteps now, Triton was hot on our heels. They were very excited about what we presented and asked me for the formats and asked me how we went through it.
Did we get a fee?
I did, no. And so it's something that we do that is ahead of the game, and I'd like to keep it that way. And so in the process, it's new. Nobody else has discovered the exact way of doing it. So if you have any comments on the process, I'm sure there are lots of ways in which we can improve it. Please keep in touch with us.
And as Nick just said, we are looking for any kind of improvements. And if you notice in these beginning summary documents, not only is there evidence noted certain places, but also we've asked ourselves some questions. Do we really understand all points of this document? Mm-hmm. So some questions: do we understand our goals? Are we focusing on the things that matter? So as you're filling this out, please keep that in mind, because it will only help us improve not only our own meetings and journeys, but also that of the school district,
I
so.
think the last page is important. There, we try and summarize the comments, but we also try to put together some possible actions to address those comments. So, as you're writing your comments, give us some thoughts as to how you would expect us to correct that situation or to improve upon it.
I think you're talking about page 5, the looking forward section.
I am the looking forward section.
Comments and possible actions, so if there's any.
This is the executive summary. The full
Right.
deck, I think, was about a 12 or
Right.
18-page document. So there is a lot of detail that is generated out of your self-evaluations. This is just a presentation summary.
So again, for any member, and particularly the two new members, I would be glad to do a workshop, or if you'd like to meet and just talk about what the parameters are of both of these evaluations, or just call me or whatever, because these are two of our most important jobs, and it does help us look forward. Oh, thank you so much.
Those are going that way. This is yours. Thank you.
No, thanks. Is this mine? Mine was colored.
One for you, one for me. What? Whichever one has a little funny staple would be yours.
Oh, I don't have the original, I don't think.
Does somebody have the original?
That's it. Oh, that's not
It's
it.
blue.
Okay. Thank you.
Here it is. You can trade that one.
Trade. This is the packet that I was referring to, just quickly, and if you, you don't need to look at the whole thing, but if you glance through it, you'll see that, these aren't numbered, the same overview page is there that we looked at before, but then if you look at these pages further in, you'll see that all the rubrics are there and the performance indicators for each rubric. So that these are meant not as definitive statements, but as guidelines for you as you fill out all of these forms. And I know it might look daunting now, but it really isn't.
It's not as bad as it looks.
No, it fits together, but what we want to make sure is that we're doing justice to our school community and for our superintendent. So, does anyone have any further comment on that?
I would
Mr.
just say for David and Christine, probably the best way to use these documents is go through, do it as you think you should. When you run into a question, go back and find the answer here. It'll probably be here. Unless you were suffering from insomnia and you need to put yourself to bed, in which case you can read through the whole deck.
We'll give you a little while to look through the documents from now until the end of June. All right, so when would does the committee have a thought about when we would finish our self-evaluation process?
I would say we should, again, mirror what the superintendent is doing, let the school year finish.
Yes, okay.
And then do the evaluation at that point in time.
And that's what we did last year. We found that that was the best schedule for you, to allow closure of the school year before.
And there's stuff that we've asked the superintendent to do as a school committee because it's part of our objectives, and we would want to be able to see her evidence because that, in many regards, is our evidence as well.
Correct. But we are also responsible for gathering our own evidence. Meetings that you may have gone to, community forums, whatever that gives evidence to, perhaps family, community involvement, any of those things. So it's pretty broad range, but we're here to help. Any questions?
So
Mr. Hawkeiser.
The process here, like, some of the things you guys are saying make me think that there's an ask here that you want us to go away and fill out documents.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct, okay. But not until the summer.
Not until the superintendent presents us with her evidence.
Right, clearly we need to wait for that, but then
Yes.
as far as the self.
You can do that.
You can do that anytime.
You can do that.
Those are these?
Yes.
For some reason, by the way, I didn't get a thing in the mail this week, and not that I don't mind getting another copy of this in paper in the mail, but it didn't come this week.
Mine did.
I didn't get it either, but I have it online.
Yeah, so again, but you're talking about these documents here at the end, these are the self-evaluative ones?
Yes.
Yes.
Those goals, I was just looking at them. I don't think we modified the school committee goals that much.
That was
year
my
to
next
year,
question.
did we?
No, but I remember the first year there was, that was the superintendent's. No, you're right. We've been fairly satisfied with this
these.
document. But that doesn't mean that it can't change or be
We
improved.
can add new goals for next year.
So the goals are still the ones we're looking at?
Yes.
On the deck that you've...
And the goal that was, and it's very quick, I mean, they're in the...
Right, okay.
And they're basically, they start with curriculum and assessment, ensure the district has the direction and resources to meet community and state expectations and standards. Then we have families and communities, professional culture, goals around teaching all students, and finally, management and operations. And we specify what it is that we mean by those things. You'll see across the top, you'll say assess the amount of progress towards this goal, circle 1. Comments. At the top, you have how well we did. Proficient is the default. It's not marked as a default, but that is what we would expect any normal operating school committee to be doing.
And that, just not to interrupt, but to supplement, that's what you were talking about. If you give marks of proficient, you don't necessarily have to make a comment. But if you do unsatisfactory, needs improvement, or exemplary, we would just like a comment back so we can understand what your feeling is and where we're standing with that.
Mhm.
So, anything further about that?
Believe me, we had, as you will see in the executive summary, we had a lot of grades that required comment, so, which is a good thing.
Thank you. And we're here to support. Next on our agenda is a resolution against lifting the cap on the Commonwealth charter schools. It's in your packet. And if you recall, we were approached by the Newburyport Teachers Association to support this initiative. We verbally voted that we would, I don't think we voted, we verbally discussed that we would accept this resolution. So I'm going to read it into the record, and then I'll open it up for discussion, comment, and what we want to do at the end of it. You have this in your packet. Resolution against lifting the cap on Commonwealth charter schools. Whereas free public schools available to all students, regardless of income, ability, need, or English language proficiency, are fundamental to our democracy. And whereas all of our students deserve high-quality public schools that teach the whole child, providing enrichment and addressing social and emotional needs in addition to core academic subjects. And whereas the local opportunity for our public schools is necessary to ensure that schools are responding to the needs of their communities, and whereas Newburyport is losing $1.9 million to Commonwealth charter schools, and public school districts across the state are losing more than $408 million this year alone. The loss of the funds that undermining the ability of districts to provide all students with the educational services to which they are entitled. And whereas the Commonwealth charter schools are often approved over the objection of the majority of community residents and their elected officials, and are not accountable to local elected officials once they are approved. And whereas Commonwealth charter schools often fail to serve the same proportion of special needs students, low-income students, and English language learners as districts from which they receive students, and often use high suspension rates to drive out students they don't want to serve. And whereas the Commonwealth charter school system is creating separate and unequal opportunities for success, and whereas lifting the cap on charter schools would greatly worsen the problems listed above and lead to a costly and divisive two-track school system. Therefore, be it resolved that the Newburyport School Committee opposes lifting the cap on the Commonwealth charter schools. Could I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the resolution is read.
Second?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Menon?
Yeah, I support the resolution. I have to say that I wish the language had been less divisive, and it makes it sort of harder to approve something that I support. I understand all of those issues exist, but we're being asked to take a position on whether or not there'll be additional seats allocated to our school and to other schools, and I just wish that the document had said that. I find it needlessly divisive.
Thank you. Mr. Hawkeiser?
Whose resolution is this?
The MTA, Massachusetts Teachers Association.
Because it specifically talks about Newburyport.
Right.
So did the MTA draft one for
Yes.
each town?
Well, our town.
The MTA drafted one, and we included our information.
Okay, so are there other parts of this that are only written by us, or is something like this going in front of all state school committees?
This was written for us because Newburyport, number one, has a charter school, so any community that wouldn't have a charter school wouldn't have this language.
Right.
The other language is the $1.9 million that the city of Newburyport pays to the charter school, which is intrinsic to us as well. So this was a draft form that was sent out by the MTA and then fitted to Newburyport. Mayor? Oh, Mr. Decanter.
Didn't we receive a similar resolution from Massachusetts Association of Superintendents that was tied to really not doing anything with charter schools unless they fully funded the committee recommendations on Chapter 70? I thought there was a resolution
We
on
did a
that.
Chapter 70 resolution. We
That
did
was a
sign
Chapter
that.
70
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah.
Which we signed and sent
Yes.
in.
Yeah.
Was that tied to charter schools as well, do you remember, Donna? Was that one of the items that was mentioned?
I
in
believe
there?
there was some statement about the, charter school, having more equitable funding for public schools and charter schools having their own track. I believe there was something about that. It wasn't listed at this level, though.
I'll check tomorrow and see if Mass came out with a position paper on this. Let me check that.
I think I'm with very much in the same camp as Bruce on this. I am, and perhaps even David in some of it. I think we are not being consistent. We're talking about some things that are statewide but probably don't really affect us, and then we've got some local stuff that certainly does affect us, and it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb in that it does affect. I just find it trying to be all things by adding more whereases to the petition and not necessarily focused on the needs of our community. I think, in my experience, we have no reason to question the educational value of the charter school. What we have questioned since the inset was the process through which it is funded.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not clear here. That does not come, we have a charter school here. I'm probably, I'll stick my neck out here. I don't think Newburyport is one of the communities that's a target for another charter school right now.
No.
So, to me, putting a cap on charter schools isn't nearly as important as resolving the funding issues about charter schools. And I'm not sure this really addresses that particular issue as clearly as I would want it to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very clear that we say we're contributing almost $2 million to the charter school, and there's no oversight on that.
Nor does it mention we're contributing that much money while we're looking at a level funded budget. So it's a problem that we're doing that.
So that, and after listening to the representatives of the Newburyport Teachers Association earlier in our meeting during our public comment, I don't think this represents their concerns as clearly as we might if we took the concept and say, hey, we need to add our vote to our voice to the legislative process.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to do that, let's do that based on what our needs are, based on what our community needs are, based on what is happening in our community, and not based on a mimeograph special that was sent out by the Massachusetts Teachers Association.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
So yeah, I do agree a
Kaiser.
lot of that, but
No,
some of the problems I have with the language really is it sounds a little boilerplate hype. And I am absolutely in favor of getting rid of charter schools, certainly not lifting the cap on them. It is a statewide issue that we need to be involved in locally and fight because we don't live on an island. And I can tell you, as bad as our problem is, it's much worse where I work in Walden, where we're contributing almost $10 million and looking at a $2.5 million deficit. So it's a disaster elsewhere, and the charter school is getting 400 extra seats this year, whether or not they approve lifting the cap. So I have no problems being part of the statewide fight and making local note, but when it says things like often use high suspension rates to drive out students they don't want to serve, that just seems like that seems like more of like a political cartoon than a strong memo that we want to sign on to.
Mr. Menon?
Is it possible to approve this after striking a whereas?
Sure. This was just presented to us, I guess.
That's up to you and me. I moved and you seconded.
Yeah.
Right.
Dave has really pointed out, that to me is the
Whole
most
paragraph.
egregious paragraph.
Yes, agreed.
You know, the rest of it, I think, is slightly more tempered.
Well,
I think a lot of those statements are true. And I think maybe they might need some clarity. Or, like we're talking about having to add or enhance our English language learner program here in the district. Those students are not coming into school in time and finding out how to apply to the charter school. So the charter school doesn't have to add an ELL program. So there are a lot of truths in that statement. The same thing with special needs students. There are a lot of special needs families who are overly cautious about applying and going to a charter school because the resources are limited, and it's a small section of the pie. So they come to the district schools. Low-income students, the transient students, the homeless students we serve here. I'm assuming we serve some homeless families here. I know we do in Walden. They don't show up in time to apply for the next year and get on the waiting list. Like, I'm still taking students into my school now. I don't know if we are here in Newburyport, but I just got 2 last week. I'm going to get another one next week. They're not going to the charter school. And I think that's a huge problem that's not discussed in the, we accept all people from public schools, from the public zip codes. So I have no problems with that being there, but it should be more factual than sort of vague. Even the other ones are often approved over the objections of a majority of the community residents. Like, it just seems like it's just an odd thing to say.
And it's water under the bridge in terms of Newburyport.
Yeah, so I really don't know.
That happened 10 years ago or whatever it is. Yeah.
I guess I'd like to make it the suggestion at this point. The superintendent will check to see if Massachusetts Association of School Committees has come out with a position paper on this that is written a little differently. And then maybe we can do is the next time we meet, we can take a look at if we have other documents that aren't, I'm hearing that this is inflammatory, so perhaps.
Motion to table.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion?
No discussion
All
on
those
the
in
table.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, I am, as you know, according to our rules and regulations, I'm kind of a gatekeeper of the ethical and behavioral practices of the school committee. And I would like to report that in the past 6 months, there have been no violations to the rules and regulations by any member of this committee. So congratulations and keep up the good work. Superintendent's report.
I want to start with the strategic plan and just update everyone. You may recall that the planning team made some decisions around each of the individual plans that were presented by the action team leaders, and some of them were sent back for some minor tweaks and some revisions. So I have an update from each of the action team leaders that I would like to give you. From Liz Kinsley's team, she said her team is working electronically. They should be done with their revisions early this week. John Gangemi reports that the majority of the revisions have been made to the action plans. The original plan was to meet in person, however, due to scheduling conflicts, we communicated electronically, and it actually has worked out pretty well. Carly Fair reported that she made some of the easier revisions and have put them into the actual document. The team is planning on meeting on Thursday, June 2nd, in person to complete the rest of the revisions. Mercy reported that they met last week, and she just needs to add the information to the software and the final edits in there. And she asked a question if there was a chance for feedback from Dr. Cook and before the final presentations, and I assured her that that was possible. Emily Russin met with her team last week, and the rest of the work there is being done electronically. Deb Zabel reports that that they are going to formally update the plans electronically, and I had shared with her that we needed to have everything done really no later than June 2nd. And Mr. Cole, I'll let you update the school committee on your team.
Yeah, we're in the process of updating it, but we're going to meet next week. Time hasn't been established yet to finalize things, so sometime next week.
Great, thank you. So,
and I just want to ask, are we sure that all of our action teams have the support they need?
We have offered to all of them for any one of us to attend any of their meetings, any questions that they've had. I think they've been pretty good about asking for help when they've needed it.
Good.
Angela, Lisa, or myself attended and were present when all the teams were meeting every single time.
Yeah.
So we were there for support. And I do think that based on the quality of the plans that I've seen so far, I think we're going to have a very robust plan when all is said and done.
A lot of hard work's been done.
It's very exciting.
A lot of hard work.
Very exciting.
I'll attest, I came in and met with Susan, Angela, and Lisa on May 4th, and they're very helpful in helping me focus on the changes that we needed to make.
Great. That's good to hear.
I do have a few other things that I'd like to add. I would like to report that, I'm very happy to report actually, that we have a tentative agreement at this point with AFSCME in terms of our negotiation process with them. And I really want to publicly state that it was a pleasure negotiating with them. We had 3 sessions. There was give and take on both sides, and I feel that we ended up with a fair and equitable contract for them. They still have to ratify, but I do want to let you know that at the end of the session, I said to them, this has been a pleasure in negotiating with you, and I spoke to a couple of them a couple of days later, and they gave me the same feedback. So, and we're moving along. We had 2 what I would term very positive sessions with the teachers. Our last 2 sessions have been very positive. I think we're definitely making very positive progress there. And with the teachers' assistants, we will be we meet with the teachers tomorrow, and we meet with the instructional assistants on Wednesday. So we're making progress there as well. So I have nothing but positive things to say about our contract negotiations at this point. So that's going very well. I do want to share with you that I had a call, and I guess I'm reaching out to the members of this committee. I had program director over at Atria call me, and they have a resident there who is 101 and who would like to get her GED. But they are in need of a tutor to help her get her GED. So I didn't know. You all have lots of connections out in the community. If you can think of anyone, they've been in touch with the State Department. I've gotten them hooked up there, and they've talked to all the people that they need to with the GED. but I would really like to make this happen. Really like to make this happen. So if you can think of anyone who might be interested, I can.
SCORE, did they do that? Did they help with that? SCORE, it's a volunteer.
That's really more for business. That's more business.
You might be a teacher in there, though, and it's all volunteerism. I don't know. It just might be worth reaching out.
And there's another.
Oh, that's a great idea.
What?
Myron.
Yes. That's a wonderful idea, Byron.
There's another
Ross.
group, I don't know if they're local, Seniors Helping Seniors.
Not familiar with them. Any information or thoughts that you have, if you could shoot me an email, I'll connect.
Does Senior Center have some sort of an education program?
Well, they do, various. I mean, they've only been open since November, but they do, ukulele. They do
I'm just saying
chess.
somebody
They
who might
do.
know.
Yes, I know, but we certainly
Yeah.
could reach out through them. I would imagine they would have called Roseanne, also.
We could also check with Vicki here through Adult Ed.
That's a good idea, too. I knew that I would get a lot of good ideas if I brought it here.
Vicki Hendrickson.
Yeah. Thank you all. So hopefully we can
tank.
we can
Oh, that's
find someone.
exciting.
Because I think that would just be such a great thing to have happen, and what a great message to send to our students.
Very cool.
We'd have to have a graduation ceremony for her, too.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to, just as an update, you'll recall at our last school committee meeting, one of the concerns that was brought up was the lack of intervention at Mullen. Tara and I have been talking, and we're in the process of developing a plan where we are looking at her class size in the 4th grade. Currently, she has 8 sections, and we are looking at cutting back to 7 sections, which still puts a very reasonable class size. And actually, there's a couple of teachers who are interested in doing intervention work in both literacy and math and have the appropriate certifications. So I expect that at our next school committee meeting, I will have a fully developed plan to share with you. But I think that it's a creative way of solving a problem and still getting a big bang for the buck. So that is one of the things that we're definitely looking at.
Would you, when you report out to us, would you please include class sizes?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
What they would be with the 8 and
Yeah,
what they...
they're in there.
Now, when you're talking about 2 teachers, you're talking about choosing one of them and keeping 7 sections,
That's correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
And so that one person would do math and reading, or?
Yes.
Okay.
They would do both. They would absolutely do both. Let's see what else I have for you. One of the other things I wanted to make you aware of is Department of Higher Ed invites school districts to submit applications for a limited number of free Go Higher college readiness programs for the 2016-17 school year. The program brings 5 to 6 University of Massachusetts, State University, and community college students into high schools for a student-to-student discussion about making a successful transition from high school to college. Students from the state's public campuses share personal stories about their own high school experiences, how they chose a college and a major, and how they learned to organize their time, get involved in campus activities, and either commute or to live on campus. Districts may also apply for a public college and university admissions fair or evening program for parents. The application and further information are available on the Department of Higher Ed's website. The deadline for submitting is June 10th, and we have applied to this program. So I want you to be aware of that. Trish Blackstock in the Guidance Department has gone ahead and has completed.
So what would that
the
mean for our
application.
students?
What it would mean is that there would be
Student resources.
it's student resources as well as resources for parents that would be coming to Newburyport. If
What do
we
you
are
think, Clara?
one of the districts selected.
I think that'd be a good idea, hearing from someone.
Sharing experiences and... Do you get that with any other venue? Like talking to students who were here and went on to college and come back, or?
I remember early first semester, there was a group of kids who had graduated either last year or the year before who the Blackstock invited to come back and ask questions, which was helpful. But having, I think, a more organized and structured program, like what that sounds like, that's a good way.
Would maybe have more people involved that way.
And then the last thing that I'd just like to share with you, it's an update. As you know, we have an alliance, Greater Newburyport Borough Alliance on behalf of Borough Kenya. And I received a letter from Sue Crawford, who is the vice president for this group, and one of the things that she did was she sent along some pictures of some of the things that we sent from the school district. The blue chairs that you see in this, I'll pass this around here, were from the old Brown School. And there are some old projectors that we took out that, when we had the new technology and the new buildings, that we passed along. So I just share this with you. So it's nice to know that some of the things that we donated are being appreciated and being used. So I will pass those around. So that's it for me.
That's great. Any questions for the superintendent's report? Okay, Assistant Superintendent's report?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on what Susan had to say about the strategic planning, because we have been recently just brainstorming, kind of putting our heads together and thinking about how we might do business next year, so that we are sure that we're able to integrate the strategic plan into some of the work we do. And one of the things that we're currently talking about is the use of the early release days. And so we are thinking about forming working groups or professional learning communities of teachers that will be able to select one of the actions they would like to work on from the strategic plan. So once we identify what the focus areas of the strategic plan are going to be for the first year, then that will be communicated to teachers, and teachers would have the opportunity to pick an area of interest from the plan that they would like to collaborate with other teachers on bringing those actions to a reality in the school district. So we're in early stages of talking about this and thinking about this, but it's a shift in the work that we've been doing, and kind of an exciting thing to think about. And I wanted you to be aware of it and I'll keep you informed as the idea unfolds more.
Can you just give an example, because I heard you speak about this a little bit, about some of the opportunities that teachers might avail themselves of? In that learning community, it is a dynamic shift, I think.
Sure. As you know, there were 7 results statements that came out of the strategic plan, and from each of those became an action team. Each of those action team did I say result statements already?
Yes.
I'm sorry. There were 7 strategies that each became, excuse me, that all became action teams. And then those action teams, in working, as many of you served on, developed result statements that they wanted to see come out of that strategy. And then beneath each of those result statements are numerous actions. But those actions should be things that a group of people could take and bring to life. And so those are the things that we'll be putting forward to the teachers, each of those actions, what those actions are from
Can you just name a couple?
Various results. Off the top of my head, sure.
The result statements.
Oh, the result statement?
That the action plans will grow. Well, it's okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
I'm just trying to think of some of the
but you
result
did talk
statements.
about that before, that teachers would really be engaged in things that they want to learn more about, which would follow the strategic plan and help the district to further develop.
Well, as you know, some of the strategies were reimagining teaching and learning, developing support systems for every child.
We were talking about one in the last meeting.
Culture.
No, the one about pursuing your own, for students to pursue personal learning opportunities, so to facilitate that.
Optimizing organizational design and operations.
Right. And within each of those, really it's the actions that they're going to have an opportunity to look at. Under that larger umbrella, what are the actions that are going to help us realize those? And I'm sorry I don't have those right in front of me or off
No, I
the
didn't
top
mean to
of my
put you
head.
on the spot. I think it's exciting, and the more we know about that.
I think it's exciting too, and I think teachers will be excited about that. That's an assumption I'm making until we hear more from the teachers. But I think it would be nice to have a choice too on the release day of focusing on an area that you would like to give some attention to, and working collaboratively. There may be multiple teams that are working on a particular action in different buildings, and then we provide opportunities for those teams to come together and say, well, this is what we thought about this at the high school level, and this is what we think about it at the elementary, for example. So, so we're excited about developing that further and really giving ownership to every professional in the school district for bringing life to the plan. And I think that that is, where we'll really have a full investment when everyone feels like they were a participant in making it happen. So.
And just to add to that, I think that one of the things that we've heard throughout the year is that teachers want to have more choice in their professional development and in what they're doing. This would allow them to have a really broad range of choices for things to participate in. And you could have 3 teachers in a building who decide that they have a particular interest in X and would be able to pursue that. So it really does allow teachers to look at a broad range of areas and to be able to really pursue that thing that they're passionate about or that they really want to learn more about.
Kind of within that structure of the strategic plan.
Mr. Menon?
One of the action steps that emerged from our group, which was optimizing organizational design and operations, is to take a look at the district calendar and how we structure our professional development days. So there's some clear direction from the group that there's consensus on making some changes. That I think are going to give us more flexibility.
Great.
We also talked about
Mr. Hawkeiser?
Sorry. We also talked about that because we came up with a lot of new things that people should be considering and trying. And the reality is that we assumed that a lot of people wouldn't have heard of a lot of them, much less be able to execute with any sort of vigor. So one of the things we definitely suggested was making use of professional development time in a way that allowed teachers to get their heads around how to take this idea and make it valuable to student learning.
Which is part of the reimagining.
It is part of the reimagining, yes. And then just on the heels of that, the other thing I told you that I would bring forth is some of the descriptions around some of the professional development that is being offered in the district this summer. I did notice that one of the classes said to see the attached. It's a technology class, and we forgot the attached. We'll send that to you, so I apologize for that. But it just gives you an idea of some of the things that are available to our teachers this summer. We tried very hard not to have an overlap of professional development, so that if for some reason somebody wanted to participate in every single thing we were offering, they should be able to. Wow. So there's a little bit of an overlap in a couple of them, but we knew that would be because one is offered for elementary teachers and one is offered for high school teachers, so they wouldn't have the same participants. So if you see that, that's generally the reason.
And who determined this list?
Well, it came out of a lot of things. It's come out of information from the Professional Development Council. We've talked a lot about this. It's come out of some of the needs that are associated with some of the work that's currently being done in the classroom. So some of it came out of the work that we did on the full professional development day, in people requesting additional professional development around some of those areas.
And who's teaching these? Are they college credit or?
There's most of them. Some of the trauma course is a college credit class. The
From
Leslie University. The adolescent literacy class, I believe, has that option from University of California. I believe it is. Responsive Classroom is an in-service professional development. The SEI PDP class is something that is needed for licensure. That's for PDPs. The math workshop is stemming out of a small grant we have, and the teachers will be paid to participate in that one. The technology workshop is an in-service workshop. The mindfulness for teachers is a technology workshop, and the co-teaching is not solidified yet, but that one would be, so. They'll have some type of credit associated with them.
Okay.
Not all college, some are in service.
And are they all on site?
They're all on site.
Nice. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Mr. Decanter, sorry.
Angela, what is a hybrid course?
A hybrid course is a class that generally has some face time and some online time.
Thank you.
Subcommittee reports. Joint Ed will meet before our next meeting. Finance.
We need to schedule a meeting.
Finances. I'm talking about Joint Ed.
I'm sorry.
We have one scheduled for Wednesday morning.
Oh, it is Wednesday morning, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
That came out, you probably didn't check your email today.
The 18th, this Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Policy,
Saturday, the 21st.
curriculum instruction.
Curriculum instruction met this afternoon. Essentially, we talked about sort of the overarching agenda for the committee, what areas we want to touch on. We also had a general description of how the committee has operated in the past. We had some lengthy discussion as well about sort of world language as an issue that the whole district is facing, and we also talked about developing or sort of having a calendar in which, sort of things like PARC and MCAS results are reported out to the committee, and then the committee then participates in bringing those to the school committee. So we're scheduled to meet next month.
Yeah, I shared that that's a model that's worked really well with finance, where we've had a meeting with a smaller group and then brought it to the larger, and it's allowed us to really kind of refine.
Yeah.
We've asked some interesting questions. I thought one of the more interesting questions that Dave asked was, how do we begin a dialogue with parents? How can parents tell us what they're experiencing with their students at home? We hear sort of from teachers, we hear from the administrators, but we don't really sort of gather that information from parents and students, and it's really a way to begin that conversation. So those are all areas that we plan on talking about and covering.
Thank you. And I updated you on the superintendent's evaluation, so that's it for subcommittees. We don't need an executive session this evening. The superintendent updated you as to where we stand with contract negotiations. We have another meeting tomorrow afternoon with the teachers. We do have some tentative agreements, and hopefully we will continue on that path. So we'll update you if there's anything further. Could I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you guys, where are the dollars?